Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Saunders here, and I'm here to discuss with you how to write an amazing college essay, share some tips as well as some guidelines that I think are, maybe a formula that I've kind of been constructing in my head after having taught this class for many years now and having read a lot of college essays. Okay, so we'll start at the beginning, organizing your introduction. So we've talked a little bit about hooks. So you're going to want to have a solid hook at the beginning in your introduction. You're going to want to maybe perhaps give some historical context, some background information. The kind of information that you give in the context, of course, depends on the particulars of A, the assignment, but B, your topic itself. What is essential is that you help your reader grasp the subject. Now, you might have an introduction that is one very long paragraph. You might have an introduction that's two body paragraphs. With me, that's fine. Some professors are a little bit more particular about the format that they're looking for. So if you ever have any questions about what you're writing is okay, I would always double check with whoever is teaching the class. But typically the formula is that you have one introductory paragraph and at the end comes your thesis statement. And they being your professor will know to look for your thesis statement there. And again, sometimes people have thesis statements that are really like two sentences, and that's okay with me as well. But again, if you ever have any questions about the kind of structure that you're using, I would always double check with whoever is in charge of the course. So in general, your introduction, writing, I think academic writing, but any type of writing is always setting up your reader so they know what to expect. So with your introduction, you should give your reader a general background of whatever you're discussing, and you should set them up for whatever you're going to talk about for the rest of the paper. So you've kind of got a lot of things to achieve in a short space of that introduction. I always find writing the introduction to be the most difficult part because that's when I kind of set up everything I'm going to say. Once I got the introduction down, I'm good. So another element that you're going to want to be thinking about is your body paragraphs. So your first body paragraph usually comes after your introduction, and it should contain, each body paragraph should really contain the following. You want to have a strong topic sentence. You want to have context and source of your evidence, right? So you're going to want to tell us, where is this evidence coming from? You want to have evidence, quotation, and you always want to make sure you use the appropriate citation. We use MLA in this class, but it kind of depending on what your area of study is later on in your academic career. After you have some evidence, you're going to want to include some analysis. And I always say with the analysis, don't be afraid to dig deep. Your analysis should ideally be that should be the most sentences in your body paragraph. You should spend the most time thinking about and engaging with your analysis of your evidence, because it's really like the most important part of the paper. Your analysis is when you are going to tell us something new on what you're saying. You're going to be shedding insight on whatever you're discussing. And then, of course, you're going to want to have your conclusion sentence, which ideally should have some type of a transition to to the next paragraph. Sometimes the transition comes in the topic sentence as well, but I think transitioning between body paragraphs and transitioning through the essay is something that's important to think about. And you're always going to want to be referencing back to your thesis, because that is like the main claim of the essay. And the claims that you make in your body paragraphs, those are kind of like subclaims. Okay, so tips for organizing your body paragraphs. You're going to want to limit each body paragraph to a central idea that, of course, connects back to your thesis. So your thesis, we're going to talk about that in a few slides, but your thesis is kind of like the center or the nexus of your entire paper, and your body paragraph should always relate back to that main claim. So a common mistake that I see is people attempting to cram too many kind of lesser claims or subclaims into a single paragraph. So do not attempt to cram too many ideas into a single paragraph. Try to keep it into one major idea that you prove with evidence, and you unpack the evidence of your analysis. So, and I think organizing your body paragraphs this way helps you to be focused. It kind of gives the paper an organizational center, and you can just go from there. Okay, your conclusion should contain, and this is your conclusory paragraph. Again, sometimes like the introduction, you might find your conclusion in several paragraphs. Your conclusion should contain the following. It should summarize the main points of the essay. It should restate the thesis, the major claim of the essay, using new language. Do not just reiterate your thesis statement. So you kind of want to rephrase your thesis. And you also want to add some further analysis to what you've already stated in your essay for your reader to dwell on. So you kind of want to give your reader some new ideas as you start to, exit the paper, summarize, and give us a reader a few new thoughts so it's not just everything that we've already read. What makes a strong thesis statement? So this is something that we've done some reading about throughout the semester. A strong thesis statement has a limited scope. That means its argument is achievable in the space of the essay. In other words, it isn't too broad. It lays the roadmap for your entire essay. It is well written. And your thesis statement should always be something that is arguable, right? Something that is specific enough to kind of create an argument from it. Because of course, your thesis statement is kind of a synthesis of the argument that you're going to create. And another, really common mistake is that people will have thesis statements that are just too broad. Like for instance, all women are good at riding horses. Of course, that's a ridiculous thesis. Well, that would be an improper thesis statement for an academic essay. But the problem that I'm pointing to here is that that statement is too broad for any student to achieve in 5 pages. You really want to go something more specific because that is an argument that you can make within a small space. And it helps you give your paper focus, which is something that you basically learn how to do in college. These are all new skills for me when I was in college. So instead of that, maybe I would revise my thesis statement to in the 1990s, changes to horseback riding resulted in more female riders than male. So then, I've limited the scope of my thesis statement, and by doing that, I've made it easier for me to prove in a small space. And your thesis statement should lay the roadmap for your entire essay. So each topic sentence of your body paragraph should relate back to, in some way, to your thesis statement. So we'll look at an example of a strong thesis statement here, and this is from the example paper on Blackboard for your essay 1. So I'll read it here. While Kalasova and Kravocha present logical arguments regarding the inequality of bikes in the street area, they lack the explanation of the opposing view of cycling infrastructure and obviously slant their argument to persuade readers that motor transportation is a growing serious problem. Okay, so why is this thesis statement strong? It's strong because it kind of gives us a narrow scope of the paper, right? That then the author of this paper then goes on to prove. So their topic sentences should all relate back to the topic sentences of their body paragraph should all relate back to this main claim. So talking about topic sentences, here's an example of a strong topic sentence that relates back to the thesis that we just read. So this is from the same paper. So while Kalasova and Kravocha's main argument is clearly presented and understandable, their ethos distorts the reader's view and weakens the argument. So this is a topic sentence that relates back to the thesis, where they mention that the authors, Kalasova and Kravocha, present logical arguments. So here they say, yes, the main argument is clearly presented and understandable. But then they're talking about the ethos in particular, which relates back to the referencing of slanting the arguments to persuade readers that motor transportation is a growing and serious problem. So we see that this topic sentence kind of is a subclaim that relates back to the thesis statement. So the thesis statement is kind of a roadmap for the entire essay. Let's look at an example of another strong topic sentence from the same paper. So Kalasova and Kravocha present substantial data to back up their claim that the equality of all transport modes is lacking. Their use of logos builds the arguments to their favor as readers can easily understand Kalasova and Kravocha's thought process. So here again, they've taken the thesis, right? And this is a claim that relates back to their original argument, but is, a little minor point that's coming off the thesis. So again, I know I've said this a few times already, but the thesis should be the roadmap of your entire essay. It is the single most important sentence of your entire essay. And really, I think the key of how to write or organize an amazing college essay is to just remain as steadfast as possible to the basic organizational structure. And if I'm the type of person where I have a lot of different ideas. Sometimes they're completely unrelated, and I have to be really strict with myself in academic writing to make sure I do not go off on a tangent and write a body paragraph that is not really related to my thesis. I have to be strict. And I think learning to be strict with yourself is something that takes time. You learn how to do it as you go on in college, but remaining pretty steadfast to the structure will make you more successful in academic writing. So, general tips. Again, organization of your essay is key. It's probably, aside from having a really solid analysis and having really good ideas, I'd say knowing how to organize an essay is probably one of the most important parts about being a successful writer in college, which is frustrating on some level because I think the writing that you do after college is different than these essays. But the more that you write, the more that you learn that writing is just made up of structures, the structure of the sentence, the structure of the paragraph. And the better you get at learning structures and mimicking structures and using structures in your writing, the better you will grow as a writer overall, not just in academic writing, but all the writing that you will do in your professional, personal, and academic career. Another important tip is to try to focus on your writing on the level of the sentence. Every strong essay consists of a number of strong sentences. And this is something that's also important to remember in terms of revision. You want to go back and make an essay better, look at each sentence, piece by piece, then the paragraph, then maybe the essay as a whole. But if you just focus on each sentence and try to make each sentence as grammatically correct, and trying to make them as varied and beautiful, whatever that means to you, as possible, if you do that for a certain amount of time, you will find that your paper will be a lot stronger at the end. So, in terms of talking about structure, it's always important to think about both the small structure of the sentence and the larger structure of the paper, because those are both really important. All right, hopefully now you have a little bit of a better idea of how to write a solid college essay. Another thing I want to, before I, click sign off here, is that analysis is important. Um, and choosing evidence is really important too, because the evidence that you choose is your analysis is contingent on the evidence that you choose, right? So if you think of the evidence that you choose as the kind of the skeleton of your essay, you can think of the analysis as like the beautiful ornaments that go on the skeleton. I know that's kind of a weird metaphor, but the analysis, I think, is where the essay really blossoms and where you get to really show off your critical thinking skills and the kind of intellectual ability that's kind of asked of you as a college student. All right, I hope everyone has found this lecture helpful and have a great rest of your day.